Peter Obi, the Labour Party's presidential candidate, has alleged that he received threats to his life following his New Year's message, where he criticized the current administration's handling of the economy and security. This shocking claim has raised concerns about the safety of the opposition leaders and the potential for political tension to escalate. The threats allegedly stem from his comments on the country's worsening economic and security situation, including the rising poverty rate, insecurity, and corruption.
Peter Obi's New Year's message was a scathing critique of the APC's performance, highlighting the country's decline in various sectors, including the economy, security, and education. The APC's response was swift, with Felix Morka, the party spokesperson, labeling Obi a prophet of doom and accusing him of trying to score cheap political points. However, the political party and its supporters have fired back, condemning the APC's reaction and the alleged threats to Obi's life, and arguing that the party has a right to express its opinions and criticize the government without fear of intimidation or violence. Now, this morning, we're joined by Ikenna Azomchin, who's the Obedience General for a new Nigeria movement. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning to you both.
I think the first question would be to ask if you've seen the response by Felix Morka and to get a general sense of your thoughts about it.
Well, we all woke up to that threat, and as Obedience, we find it very disturbing that Mr. Morka would choose to, threaten Peter Obi in the manner that we Obedience have always said. Peter Obi has always maintained that violence and attacks on anybody should be in any way be condemned. So how then is Peter Obi the one threatening and crossing any line? It's obvious that the Nigerian people are being allowed to be malnourished. Nigerian people are hungry. People can't go from point A to point B. Goods and services are not moving. Nigerians are suffering in silence, and whose duty is it to bring that to the notice of the government? It's the opposition. So in any country that aspires to reach out to its people, they must allow the opposition to air their views. I've not seen anywhere Peter Obi goofed here or Peter Obi threatened anybody. So we must condemn these threats, and we must call on the international community to take note of Mr. Morka's comments, and further on, ask the government of Bola Ahmed Tinubu to caution, or if possible, sack Mr. Morka, because he's just blowing trumpets for nothing.
Yeah, I mean, one of the the things or the points that Felix Morka is, I believe, saying is, that things are not as bad as Peter Obi is, painting them. And of course, he's describing as a prophet of doom. So I mean, do you think that is a fair argument? That yes, things may not be as interesting or as beautiful as we want it, but it's not as bad as Peter Obi might be describing them, and he's maybe, painting a much darker picture as the opposition than what really is.
I don't know if Mr. Morka has not been in the news. Where people are being killed for looking for going to collect palliatives, rice and all that. When last was Nigerians, killed even in the southeast for palliatives? Nigerians are gasping for air. Has he not gone to his village this Christmas? Most people can't afford meat, rice, the basics. So we are on ground. We Obedience, we know the sufferings of Nigerians, and we can only expect our leader to bring these same sufferings to the notice of the government. And whereas he is doing this, and somebody is saying that he's crossing the line, and with all these kinds of threats, I think we need to ask serious questions here. Are we not allowed to talk again? Where are the dividends of democracy that you promised the people? Well, it's just accountability. Peter Obi only asks the government to take account of the promises they made to the Nigerian people.
Okay, I just want to also ask if you saw that interview that Felix Morka granted that generated this reaction from His Excellency Peter Obi.
I watched it.
Okay.
I watched it twice.
Great. And why I'm asking is because there have been people who say that his response, the response of Mr. Felix Morka, wasn't necessarily saying that, it was in response to a question that the interviewer had asked. Basically, because if you watch the interview, a number of the conversations seemed like personal attacks against Peter Obi. I mean, in cases where he referred to him as Tegwo Law, where he said you can be a taxi driver, asking, giving Mr. President advice, and it looked a little more personal. So some have argued that the interpretation of that might have been because the interviewer is, asking if this isn't too much of a personal attack. So do you think that is there a sense to the argument that it might be because of how personal the interview was, as opposed to it being, something that might spiral into a threat from Mr. Felix Morka himself? And that's not to discountenance the fact that there might certainly have been threats from other people, but I'm talking about the interview with Felix Morka.
Well, from what everybody can see, Mr. Felix Morka was ready to, malend the P2B in a way that, why would you go that personal? Mr. Morka is the publicity secretary for the APC. You stay within the line. P2B has not crossed any lines. And I can tell you today, obedience believe that P2B is not hard enough. So for P2B to speak out and being attacked this way, I think there's a problem. The frustration of the ruling APC that they've not been able to really, give to the Nigerian people those promises they made. It's not about P2B, it's about the facts on ground that the Nigerian state needs XYZ things to move on, to thrive. And P2B, as the lead opposition leader, must speak out. You cannot, silence the voice of the opposition, no matter what threats you bring forth. I don't think P2B tells the Nigerians how much threats he gets on a daily basis. Even we who are obedient, we know how we go by the Nigerians who are really on the side of government. Sometimes it's a heated argument, but all I can tell all of us here, remember first that we're all Nigerians. If we don't criticize each other, so how do we get it right here? We must criticize each other to get it right. In other democracies, these debates are face to face. They speak to you, you speak to them face to face. But because of the way and manner we've handled our democracy, people even see you as a madman criticizing government. They should welcome P2B's advice, because that's the only way they will be able to do better. If you're not criticized, you can never do better.
All right. I want to ask, because one of the things that you mentioned is, that the obedient community, even think that Peter Obi is not, pushing hard enough. What exactly would you describe as, the Peter Obi that the obedient community, from what you've described, would like to see? How much harder would, the obedient community, like to see him, push?
From the obedience perspective, we think that the lawmakers that we are elected into the House should be the ones speaking out by the time some of these laws are passed. For example, overspending. The lawmakers must stop this assembly from allowing the president to make some frivolous or very
No, I'm not speaking about lawmakers now. Apology, I'm not speaking about lawmakers now. From your earlier statements, you said you mentioned that the obedient movement don't even think that Peter Obi is pushing hard enough, or is being as aggressive as he should be. I hope I got that right. So what I'm asking is,
yes,
what exactly would you describe as what the obedient movement really expects from Peter Obi?
We want P2B to really insist on those things that the government promised while campaigning. The good governance, provision of amenities for the people, hospitals, good roads, infrastructure for the people. Where are the CNG buses? Nigerians can't even move from one point to the other. Those are the real issues. We should go to the real issues and really, you see, the one time he has hit them hard, telling them the real issues, people are threatening him. How can an opposition leader now speak? When he speaks, you threaten him. So, but we are saying that if anything happens to Peter Obi, the international community must hold Mr. Walker and his group, because we know that Mr. Peter Obi is not a violent man. He has never asked anyone to go and protest. Even when we try to protest, Peter Obi tells you you're your own. So the ruling APC must see Peter Obi as a viable opposition to work with. These threats are condemned. We condemn it in its entirety, and we urge the president to sack or possibly caution Mr. Felix Walker.
I mean, it's one thing to urge the president to sack or caution Mr. Walker, who was also once a part of a strong opposition, but right now, you know, he's aligned himself with the government. But do you actually see that happening? Is this a final call by the obedience? And if the president doesn't do this, will that maybe get reactions?
Like I've always told you, we have obedience in all the political parties. We will be doing our best to reach out to them. They must maintain the peace and unity of this country. We, obedience, have never in any way have any notion to destabilize or disturb Nigeria, disturb the government of Bola Ahmed Tinubu. We are waiting for 2027 for us to fiercely contest the presidency to bring about the good governance that we are craving for. But moving forward, there should be no threats to any opposition. Now, they should be glad that the opposition of Peter Obi is not as aggressive as the previous ones. They should remember during the Good Luck administration, Nigerians were killed, maimed by the opposition, and nothing happened. But we are civil people, we are intelligent people, we are people who have traveled all over the world. We are just saying to the government of the day, give Nigerian people those things that you promised them, and please do it fast.
Yeah. Okay, and also I'd like us to ask about, you know, the right way for opposition to be had. Opposition is a very fundamental part of our democracy. If not, what we'll then have is everybody's, you know, leaning towards one party. But what will be the right way for opposition to be had? And I ask this because part of the criticism I've seen leveled against the interview granted by Felix Walker was how very personal the attacks were as opposed to tackling certain fundamental issues. So maybe you can speak to that and speak to how all the parties, you know, can work together to maybe, I mean, I'm talking of the opposition parties, can work together to form a formidable opposition in Nigeria.
Well, that's up to the opposition leaders to find a way to put themselves together to meet this heavy challenge we have coming in 2027. But for Mr. Felix Walker, I must tell him that I don't know what his anger is about Peter Obi. Peter Obi is a man of the people. Peter Obi, it was generally accepted that Peter Obi won this election. So his anger and his jealousy, I think, because I think when he sees Peter Obi in the airports or anywhere on his way, people generally accept Peter Obi. So he should go back to his government and find out what he can do better to be the man of the people. He should not just come and start saying nonsense, because we think what he said was nonsense. Peter Obi has always maintained his lane. Obedience, you go and do the right things. Do not cause trouble. Insist on asking the ruling APC to give the Nigerian people those promises that they made. If only they can give us those promises they made, Nigerians will be complaining. So Mr. Walker should henceforth desist from threatening Mr. Peter Obi. He is in no way in the class of Mr. Peter Obi. I hope he understands that. He is in no way at all has got any levels to compare, I mean, to speak in the manner he spoke about Peter Obi. Peter Obi are not his peers. He should go and look for his peers.
Yeah. No, I also want you to, highlight, if you are, privy to any of that information, when he speaks about threats to his life, can you tell us anything about it? Are these from, fellow politicians? Is it from the ruling party? Is it from social media users. What exactly has Peter Obi been dealing with, when he says threats to his life?
Well, I will allow Mr. Peter Obi to speak for himself for that. I cannot tell you everything here, but I can tell you that the man is facing a whole lot of challenges. And we can only support him by saying to the Nigerian government, please allow the opposition to thrive. Mr. Peter Obi has been a wonderful opposition leader. He has never, ever, in my own, for the past 2 years that I've been working within the closely to Mr. Peter Obi, I have not had Mr. Peter Obi sanction any protest, not even one. So how can you threaten this man? It's unfair. And I want the security agencies those that are around Peter Obi to make sure that nothing happens to that man. Because if anything happens to Mr. Peter Obi, Nigeria it will be anarchy.
All right.
I mean, how can you threaten Peter Obi? We are even telling Peter Obi, you need to go. You need to tell the Nigerian government to sit up. Each time we sit to Mr. Peter Obi, you are not saying enough. You need to tell this government what they are not doing right. And for one time, this man is talking, you're threatening him. Then we have a problem. We have a serious problem.
Are you very certain, about, your statements? You're saying if anything happens to him, there would be anarchy. Is this, the general thinking and belief from the obedient community, or is it from Nigerians generally? And do you say that with, certain level of certainty?
Nigerian people love Peter Obi, and we will not allow anybody to intimidate Peter Obi. You know of the fact that Peter Obi is loved by all. People see Peter Obi as the Messiah. That was why they casted the votes they casted. That has never happened in the history of Nigeria. An opposition party shaking the ruling party, plus all the maneuvering, all the silencing of the voters, Peter Obi still won Lagos State. How can you now come and not allow this same man in countries where the opposition are respected? You bring Peter Obi on the table and speak to him. That's what we expect from this government. Bring Peter Obi on board. Hey, where are those things you say we are not doing good? Let us do it together. After all, the Nigerian people first.
Again, I'll go back to the question.
That's what we expect from President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, to call on Peter Obi to get his ideas, to give the opposition the time frame before the elections, before the heated election. You can partner. What is wrong with partnering with the opposition?
And do you think that Mr. Peter Obi will be open to the partnership with Mr. President?
When we are the obedience, we are saying that what's wrong with Peter Obi criticizing you? Are you sending one arm of your government to say, okay, Mr. Peter Obi, how do we do X, Y, Z? That's what we are talking about. Instead of threatening him, is he making any points in the first place? Yes, he is.
All right, I'll go back to the question about formidable opposition. Do you see the possibility of the Labour Party maybe unifying with any of the other political parties to stand as an opposition? And do you currently consider the structure of the Labour Party as a strong enough opposition, to stand against the current administration in the incoming elections?
Well, that's left to the opposition parties to put their hands together, because they know the challenges they will face. And we are talking about the threats to Peter Obi. We condemn it. We urge the international community to take note of those threats, and we hope and pray that the Nigerian state will never, ever have reasons for all of us to run into each other. We don't want any crisis in Nigeria. Opposition should be allowed to air their views. Opposition should be allowed to go about their businesses, and that is what we are pleading to Mr. President.
Yeah, I mean, final question for me would be on Labour Party again. The most recent news updates concerning the elections, it's seemingly saying that the ticket is open. It's not, it may not be given to Peter Obi. It's currently open to anybody. What are your thoughts on the current Labour Party leadership? and the current Labour Party as, as it is, the way it has been handled, do you still believe that it is the platform that Peter Obi should maybe use in his journey towards the presidency?
Peter Obi is a very smart politician. I think he's doing his business about finding the right place to be. And we obedience, we are obediently waiting. Like I said, we are not speaking for Peter Obi. Peter Obi has the intelligence to know which people to partner with, and we are waiting for that. The Labour Party itself, we expect Labour Party to go back to the drawing board, conduct an all-inclusive convention, which Mr. Peter Obi had requested earlier. All that has not been done. And we, obedience, we feel that some big rats, I repeat it again, are causing the problems in the Labour parties. But that's not what I'm here for today. Labour Party knows what to do if they want to keep Peter Obi on board. And when they do that, I think that will be, that will be the end of all these talks. But as long as we have a Labour Party that has not conducted itself in the right manners, that we see that they are credible enough for Peter Obi to continue to do business with them, we will be waiting for Peter Obi, in fact, for him to tell us the way forward, because this is entirely his decision to make. But we say no to threats to Peter Obi. We say no to threats to opposition. Opposition should be allowed to thrive. It is a democracy, and that is the beauty of democracy.
When you say that the Labour Party knows what it needs to do to keep Peter Obi on, what do you mean?
Conduct an all-inclusive convention from the wards to the local government to the state to the federal level. That's what Mr. Peter Obi had requested from the Apure-led Labour Party. By the time you conduct this convention, there will be new leaders. Imagine it should be free and fair. It should be all-inclusive. As long as that is not done, I don't think the issues between the Labour Party and Peter Obi is settled. But it might be settled. I'm sure he's on top of the matter.
Okay, well, we'll see. Time will tell. Thank you very much, Ikenna Azomchin, for joining us this morning and for sharing your thoughts with us. We'll see where this leads. Thanks for your time once again.